When Evelyn knocked on my door with a $5,000 fine for illegal hunting, I couldn't help but grin. She had no idea that little piece of paper would set off a chain of events, leaving the entire HOA in tears. They thought they controlled every inch of Green Valley Estates, but property law was my turf. And once I started digging into those so-called community trails they hiked every morning, I uncovered a secret that could flip their game. If you've ever dreamed of teaching an HOA a lesson about private property rights, this is your story. Drop a comment where. Are you watching from? I'd love to see our community's strength. 2 years ago, I never planned to become the neighborhood's rogue hero. I moved to Green Valley seeking peace after 8 years in the military, dodging bullets in Afghanistan's dust and 5 more hunched over code in Seattle's tech grind. At 38, my remote job as a cybersecurity engineer well paid, and flexible let me escape to this woodland suburb in western Washington. The modern home, with its sprawling lot and forest edge, cost a fortune. But the $450 quarterly HOA fees promised pristine grounds, pitch the agent sold with a smile, conveniently skipping Evelyn Richardson's iron rule. My second week, she arrived with a welcome basket more bylaws than snacks or smile not reaching. Her calculating eyes as she welcomed new blood to thrive under her ways. That should have been my first red flag. Evelyn, 38, a senior manager at a prestigious law firm, had run the HOA unchallenged for 5 years, her perfect bob and designer casuals, masking a control freak no one dared oppose. For months, I kept low-paid dues, trimmed my lawnmower, specs, and dodged her monthly meetings, which Sarah Johnson, 35-year-old teacher 2 doors down, called Evelyn's court. Sarah's cookies and advice, she means well sometimes, just thinks her ways law were my lifeline. I might have stayed invisible if not for hunting. Raised in Montana, my grandfather taught me to track deer with a rifle by age 10. It wasn't just sport. It was tradition, a quiet focus I craved after war and code. One October Saturday, I explored an 80-acre woodland next to our lots, its pristine forest and stream begging for deer season. County records named Frank Williams, an 83-year-old Floridian, as owner. An email later, he granted permission, asking, "For a buck photo?" I didn't know Evelyn's crew had claimed it, building trails and benches without his nod, treating it as their private reserve. November brought my shot. Before dawn, I set up in a clearing Frank tipped me off about, and as sunlight crept up, an 8-point buck stepped out. One clean shot, and it dropped. Kneeling to field dress it, I heard voices, Evelyn leading 5 women in athleisure water, bottles clinking, gossiping about neighbors, her horrified shriek, "What in God's name are you doing? This is our sanctuary." It's pierced the air as she snapped photos, branding it barbaric and against Green Valley's ethos. I tried explaining Frank's permission, but she waved it off, insisting they managed the trails and banned hunting. That moment showed their ambition wasn't just my mailbox, it was my life. 3 days later, an official envelope on my door demanded $5,000 for cruel hunting and disturbance, due in 30 days. Disbelief turned to anger. I knew HOS couldn't find off-property acts with owner consent. I called Sarah, who sighed. "That's Evelyn at school, painting you as a serial killer. Parents are spooked," she whispered that Evelyn's wellness walks had claimed those woods for years, a selling point without verifying ownership. The fight was on. The next HOA meeting loomed, and I decided to challenge that fine. The community center was packed, buzzing with tension as Evelyn presided. Flanked by Marcus Bennett, her 42-year-old VP and yes man, and Richard Cooper, the uneasy 55-year-old treasurer. Jessica Parker, a 40-year-old violation zealot, glared from the front. Evelyn framed my hunt as violent, a public shaming. I stood, presenting my hunting license and Frank's email, arguing the land was private. The HOA had no jurisdiction. Silence fell as Richard frowned, noting my point on jurisdiction. But Evelyn snapped that decades of trail use trumped any deed. Marcus added firearm safety concerns, and Jessica wailed about her kids' safety. I countered with hunting protocols, but the narrative was set. Evelyn called Officer Mike Davis, a 45-year-old neighbor cop, who confirmed my legality and landowner permission, calling it a civil matter. Undeterred, she insisted on standards, glaring pay in 30 days, or we lien your property. I refused, suggesting a real attorney. Grabbing a Green Valley Trails brochure on my way out, I saw Frank's land marked as theirs, ownership ignored. That night I called Frank, who was furious about their use and open to selling due to taxes and medical bills. A plan sparked. Dove into Washington law. Adverse possession needed 10 years of use and tax payment, which they lacked. Public records revealed HOA permits for an Evelyn Richardson nature park, with grants and fundraisers on Frank's land. I contacted Amanda Lewis, a 40-year-old attorney, who called it overreach, suggesting I buy the land. Over the next days, a campaign began. Garbage cans left out, anonymous notes labeling me an animal killer, and once friendly neighbors distancing themselves. Sarah overheard Evelyn warning parents about me. Quietly, I negotiated with Frank, settling on $750,000, nearly my savings and inheritance scheduling closing. More HOA notices piled up for trivialities, but I documented them, waiting. Sarah reported Evelyn's private meetings and ties to Daniel Thompson, 50-year-old councilman, hinting at permits. I saw Trevor Adams, Evelyn's 39-year-old husband, and Green Vision consulting head surveying the land. By week's end, Evelyn and Marcus delivered a final warning for $5,700, threatening a lawsuit. I promised a response in 48 hours, masking my move. The next day, I closed on the land, holding the deed as my ace. When Evelyn returned with legal threats, I revealed my ownership, presenting the deed and a cease and desist. Her face paled, but she clung to usage rights, storming out. An emergency meeting was called, and as I prepared, Emily Chen, a 39-year-old reporter, and Robert Jackson, a 65-year-old ex-board member, brought tips of financial misconduct hinting at Evelyn's deeper schemes. The emergency meeting that night was a circus. The community center overflowed, Evelyn's composure tight as she painted me as an outsider threatening decades of trail work. Trevor unveiled glossy plans for the Evelyn Richardson Nature Park, with paths and an amphitheater, claiming my purchase risked it all. When I spoke, the room turned hostile. I clarified the land's private status, the HOA's lack of consent, and the fraudulent fundraising, sparking outrage and confusion. Nancy Roberts, the 42-year-old secretary, watched with fear, and Richard shuffled uncomfortably. Sarah whispered that residents questioned the fundraising, suggesting Nancy knew more. Over the next days, I installed no trespassing signs, half vandalized by night caught on trail cameras showing Marcus and others. I focused on Robert's hint of financial irregularities, filing records requests with Amanda. Nancy met me at a distant coffee shop, terrified. Revealing $75,000 collected for the park funneled to Trevor's Green Vision Consulting, approved by Evelyn alone. She slid me a flash drive of evidence, fearing job loss due to Evelyn's law. Firm ties. I contacted Detective Alex Morgan, a 40-year-old sheriff's investigator, who saw grounds for an embezzlement probe. Meanwhile, protesters appeared outside my home, and Sarah warned of pressure on her job. Emily's balanced article in the Valley Chronicle raised questions, prompting an HOA lawsuit threat for $100,000, claiming defamation. Detective Morgan called with bank records showing $68,000 paid to Green Vision, overpriced for services, strengthening the case. At the next HOA meeting, Evelyn doubled down, dismissing accusations, but residents' skeptical glances cracked. Her facade, her cold threat, "You'll regret moving here," before witnesses fueled my counterattack. I gave Emily Chen an exclusive with financial records, ownership proof, and Evelyn's threat recording. Her online preview hit as Evelyn called a special meeting to counter defamation. I sent residents a letter detailing the fraud trail, camera evidence, and a proposal for a legitimate trail if leadership resigned. News of Morgan's visits to Richard and Nancy spread, eroding Evelyn's support. John Peterson, a 70-year-old donor, raged about his $5,000, and Cynthia Miller demanded an audit. The meeting erupted with shouts. "Is it true you funneled money to your husband?" as Evelyn insisted it was proper. Richard broke ranks, admitting blind trust, and Nancy stood, exposing Evelyn's concealment and threats. District Attorney William Hayes and Morgan arrived, suggesting temporary leadership. Evelyn refused, storming out, her empire crumbling. A tip led Morgan to catch Trevor and Patricia moving evidence from a storage unit, sealing their fate. 2 days later, Evelyn announced a mass trespass to reclaim trails. But I'd marked the land a wildlife reserve with a fence and signs. On Saturday, police arrested her as her crowd dispersed, her threat ringing hollow. The week after was a whirlwind. Evidence from Nancy, Richard, and the storage unit led the DDA to charge Evelyn, Trevor, and Patricia with fraud and embezzlement. Over $68,000 misspent on vacations and renovations. The HOA board disbanded by emergency vote, and Sarah Johnson became interim president, launching an audit and transparency rules. The board apologized and Richard resigned, admitting oversight failures. I built the Frank Williams Memorial Trail on my land with permits and a plaque honoring its original owner. Evelyn's crew took plea deals, probation, restitution, over $100,000, and a 10-year nonprofit ban, then sold their home and left. Reputation shattered. The last HOA meeting under Sarah focused on community, passing a trail access agreement unanimously. "This is real community," she said. "I still hunt with neighbors' support. The HOA now serving people, not power." The $75,000 repaid became a scholarship fund for ethics students. Losing access taught the HOA honesty. I gained a true home. Evelyn, last I heard, rents an apartment with no HOA fitting. Still reeling from this. Hit subscribe for more HOA tales.